Greetings, citizens, and welcome back to another Monthly Review Monday. Today we are discussing Sis and Kathy. Was the article name?
It is, excuse me, The Misery of the Left Nietzscheanism, or Philosophy as Irrationalist Ideology.
By?
Oh, and
Matthew
by
Sharpe,
Matthew Sharpe, right? Correct.
Oh, right. So, yes. Left Nietzscheanism, as my study lection commentary was about last time, if any of you caught that. Okay. Right. So, Monthly Review Mondays, Episode 3. Can't believe we made it this far. Alright, so if there were no fire under Nietzsche's fascist reception, seems to suggest to me, anyways, that Sharpe believes there is a definite connection to Nietzsche and to fascism, which I would, although I'm not quite qualified to speak on Nietzsche, as I said during the study lecture commentary, I would bristle at that attempt at connection.
Okay, can you do me a favor? As a novice, and I had a difficult time reading this, I'll be perfectly honest. Can you please tell me, just give me a brief overview of Nietzsche's political influence? Okay, as a novice and somebody who had a difficult time reading this, could you, and I'm not that familiar with Nietzsche, I'm probably far less familiar than you are, can you give me a summary of what you do know about Nietzsche and his influences in the political realm of philosophy?
Well, Nietzsche is the opposing force of systematic Hegelian thought, as I understand it, and as Matthew Sharpe here goes into detail a bit.
Okay, well, can you, instead of just using more philosophers' names, can you just tell me what that means? Just
systematic Hegelian thought? Well, you know,
yeah.
because you were there when we read.
I know, but I do forget. So just give me, don't bring up other philosophers. Just tell me what Nietzsche's political, what he believes that influences political.
He is of the Romantic era of philosophy.
Excuse me,
which means he values emotion and the strength to do, the will to power, and the overman who conquers the trials before him and conquers history to suit his needs, as opposed to building, the negation of the negation of the negation.
Okay,
and other such.
Okay, but building the negation, what does that mean, building the negation of the negation? Does that mean not conquering history, mean just accepting whatever comes? I mean, I don't understand.
Well, yes, the Hegelian systematizing tends to be very deterministic.
Okay.
As you know, the acorn inherent in the tree is the symbol of the absolute or whatever bullshit. You remember when
yes,
we
I
read
do, but
Hegel.
I don't I think all philosophers have their own opinions or their own, theory on how things began, what caused. They go much farther back than I think is necessary. And everything. I think this is gentleman club's thought process. This a lot of this philosophy. So I want to know just how it affects the politics that we're talking about, the politics of the last 200 years.
Well, that's what this article eventually gets into.
Yes, I do agree with that, but can you tell me it doesn't specifically go into detail on Nietzsche. Can you?
Yes, it does.
Oh, do you
It
think
lays
so?
out.
Okay.
There's a
Maybe
5-point
I'm-
list he has, and
Okay. Then
I think it's the second page, in fact,
Okay.
or third page. It's really early
Oh,
on.
actually, I do have that in my notes, which I don't have.
And
with me.
I have a few critiques of how
Okay.
Matthew Sharpe portrays
Okay, so
Nietzscheism in there.
okay, so we'll come across that as
Yes.
you. Okay, thank you.
Right. So I think that it's not too far to say that Sharpe and or Monfilla, I will just say the article for simplicity,
Yeah.
already
wait,
has a negative
Can I ask you something?
disposition towards Nietzsche.
I didn't see an author Monfiller.
Yeah.
So
This
there's
is
two
all
authors
about
to it?
Monfilla.
Oh
this
yes,
is
that's right. That's
a
right.
review of his
Yes,
book.
yes,
Yes.
yes.
Monsieur Nietzsche
Yeah.
de Genu.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, thank you for
Or
reminding me about that.
Nietzscheism of the Gauche.
Yeah, because it's been a while since yeah. Okay, thank you.
Oh, right. So I think we can say he has a negative disposition towards Nietzsche.
I agree. Yes, I do agree with that.
You know, the whole, even if there was no fire, is pretty, I think, shows that he's coming from a hostile, or at least, negative place. So, though Nietzsche may not have been a leftist, he certainly was not a fascist akin to the likes of Hegel. That is my argument.
Okay, so can you tell
That
me?
Nietzsche is far better for building a leftist
Okay,
ideology.
in this, the philosopher like Hegel versus Nietzsche,
and versus De Spinoza, don't
and
forget.
De Spinoza, right? What would your definition of, because fascism has so many different definitions in this context, in this three philosophers, what would the definition for fascism be for this particular article?
I would say Hegel was a reactionary
Yeah,
modernist.
Okay, but what is so that's what fascism is? Reactionary modernist? I mean, I think that's a little...
I would say so.
Oh, I think that's to call
Trying
it fascist?
to co-opt the Enlightenment movement in philosophy and merge that with a deeply reactionary theological and political project. I think that describes Hegel
That's
and Mussolini
somewhat,
perfectly.
Somewhat. I can see that somewhat. I think you were making it too simplistic, but I can see where you're going there. You would need to expound on that a bit more, but I do kind of get now where you're going with that.
I certainly think Hegel has been worse for the left than Nietzsche has. Right, moving on. So there was something about Petersonism being a descendant of Foucault, which was an interesting little thing. I'm not sure if there's any credibility to that.
I certainly
It was very
don't know.
strange to see Jordan Peterson linked with...
Oh, yes, I do recall
Foucault.
that, yes.
I mean, perhaps I don't really know much Foucault to be able to say whether that's the case.
And I mean, to me, to say that's the case in anything but a very abstract manner is suspect.
And
Because Foucault is from a very different... You know what I'm saying? It's just apples and oranges.
And he says that this is what links them is cultural Nietzscheism, which I'm not quite certain I even know what on. But that brings us to the list of...
Excuse me, citizen. If you're having... You can see the difficulty I had with this.
Well, just that phrase, but I think he means to point towards...
I get stuck up on phrases that they use that I don't understand.
Towards his list.
Yes.
And that's a good time to go over there right now. So, he has a list here, and it is the third page, the top of the third page.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, depreciation of the understanding and reason, the primacy of emotional and intuitive over the rational, the struggle against causal and
But,
systematic
excuse
thought.
me, before you read these, can you read the
No.
sentences before so we know what this is? What this list is for?
It's for what Nietzscheanism is.
Oh, okay. Go ahead. So
But
start over
I
again.
want to be very careful. I will only quote this list.
I understand. So go start from one again, please.
Depreciation of understanding and reason, the primacy of the emotional and intuitive over the rational, the struggle against causal and systematic thought, judged flat or oppressive.
So that's wonderful, but what part is Nietzsche?
Well, he's saying that is Nietzscheanism, is a rejection of systematic Hegelian thought, which I think is a good thing.
Okay.
In fact, so my note, intuition is superior to scientism in many cases, especially in the social subjects. As for systematic thought, this is a place where material science is most useful, but applied to matters of the mind, catastrophe ensues. So-called systematic philosophy is at best presuppositionally biased in shaping the reality of fact to affirm its abstract conjectures, and at worst leads to a cult-like dogma which is difficult or outright impossible to disprove. And this goes into our discussion of the problems of Hegelianism.
But can you read that intuition part of your thing again and expound upon it? Can you give some examples?
I mean, intuitional reason is superior to scientism.
Like, give an example of that.
To rigid systematizing. It's as if you do not remember reading the Hegel reader.
No, but science is with a proven formula to prove, right?
Hegel is a quote-unquote science, remember?
Oh,
Even when he's wrong, he's absolutely right, according to some persons.
but so they don't mean science as a...
Well, this is what science means. There's, of course, scientism in the West, but that's a weird modern development.
So science isn't studying, like, learning about biology, learning about astronomy?
No, it's either, it refers to two potential things. Either a method of discourse or discovery, or a system of thought. Okay,
so method of discourse or discovery. So you're saying the method of intuition is better than any other method in a lot of cases? I don't know if I necessarily...
Well, intuition...
I mean, intuition's important, don't get me wrong.
Isn't a method. Intuition is seeing things without a rigid dogmatic method.
Intuition.
This is why Baconianism is so destructive.
Intuition is feeling things.
No, intuition is
seeing things and
recognizing things. Instead of using a dogmatic method to come to conclusions and to analyze things.
So now when you explain it that way, intuition is...
It's Aristotic.
In the manner that you're using it is very different than a lot of people would, the definition they'd give to intuition, the thought process that when you say the word intuition, what that brings up. Okay, very interesting.
Is the aristocratic assertion of the individual's thought over systems and over method.
So you're about the individual?
I'm about the becoming ship of intellectual development. I believe systematic has to proceed from intuition.
Well, I absolutely
It cannot be
don't you think,
first thing.
Well, I think, but I don't think they're saying that. Do you think that's what they're saying?
Well, that was one of the problems of Bacon and one of the problems of Hegel.
I mean, it's not really, because Hegel had an intuition, and then he...
No, he forced a systematic...
Oh, he did, yes.
...onto anyone who would use their intuition.
I don't know. I think he had the intuition, and then he forced it into a systematic.
No, he does not allow for intuition.
No,
he has
I agree.
built
I
a
agree.
system.
I agree. Okay, I do agree with that, Jess.
And so, moving on to the next point in the list.
Yes.
Differentialism and ethnicist interpretations of social phenomena, notably in geopolitics.
I thought this was interesting.
I disagree with that. I think somebody can do that in a Nietzscheist lens, but I do not think that it's fair to say that that is a core phenomenon of Nietzscheism.
Interesting.
It's conflating the possibility with the you know what I mean.
Yes.
The possibility of the thing
as a definite as the
with a value of the thing.
Right.
When it's not a value of the thing, it's a possible value.
Right.
You know.
Right.
Okay. The abandonment of knowledge of real relations, recourse to myth, the involuntary survival of theological references. I think Hegelianism is much more theologically charged than Nietzscheism is. And again, I think you could argue that this is applying to Nietzscheism something that is merely a possibility of someone utilizing.
I think theology can be... I think theology in itself has so many different forms and so many different...
Well, yeah, that's another problem is he doesn't
Hegel,
define.
Right, Hegel is like Mr. Spiritual, but then you have De Spinoza. You know, he's, you know...
Right, De Spinoza was using theology to build a secular worldview.
Right.
What does this even mean, then?
That was my problem with this. I mean, as somebody who's not as well read on this as you are, and then to have that stuff, those things that stopped me in my tracks and I couldn't figure out, so it made the rest of the article.
After all, Hegel's absolute is the God on the shelf, as Coletti points out.
Yeah.
So, what theological reference?
No, I agree. I was totally kind of baffled by that.
And I believe myth is an essential part of building knowledge.
Well, I think myth kind of goes hand in hand with
building
tradition
wisdom, not
and
knowledge.
Culture and wisdom. Yeah, I do.
So
I agree.
I agree. Here, myth is the origin of wisdom and need not contradict or be emphasized above fact or, knowledge.
But let's be fair.
Absence of myth is merely a stagnated stagnation.
But let's be fair. We're talking about a certain type of myth. There are other myths. Again, just like religion, like there's a bunch of different types of religion. With myth, that's another thing. You can be ridiculous myth.
I'm speaking of myth as a broad, not tied to fact, intellectual exercise. A very broad.
Yes.
And I think that is essential for the development of wisdom.
Yes. I agree.
You cannot point to science to give, let's just say, purpose. What is the purpose of mankind? Well, science doesn't really have any answers to that. Moral philosophy, I will argue, is a type of myth.
Right.
That tells us
science doesn't have any spiritual philosophy is what
I don't mean spiritual. I mean myth in a much broader.
Just not spiritual, but beyond what we can see.
Moral philosophy is a form of myth. I am positing.
Okay.
Because it is not tied in scientific fact. That is knowledge. It's not attempting to create knowledge, but wisdom.
Yes, but it's something that men and women discuss in clubs. It's a thought process because somebody's moral philosophy, this one's could be totally different than that one. So yes, it is. I do understand what you're saying. I do agree. It's above and beyond the ones and twos formula.
Indeed. So
you know what I'm saying, right?
Yes. Yeah. You mean scientific fact.
Correct.
Okay. Then this is an odd one as well. Number 4, dandyism and pseudo-aristocratism. Flight into sublime, definitely sublime, subjectivity, systematic bowing down before literary references. And this is a really weird shot Sharpe is taking. A taste for writing in fragments that one cites as arguments from authority. That just reads like an intellectual who's being petty.
Right, but may I point something out? When I told you that I had problems, and this is why. Look at, you've had problems with almost all of these.
Well, no, this
too.
this is just a weird.
The whole,
It looks like Sharpe is taking.
A lot of them he doesn't explain. They're either weird. It's like it's a very academic article.
Yeah, this reads like he's trying to attack a form of book he doesn't like, or a method of developing writing in fragments.
Yes.
Didn't technically Althusser write in fragments, but Althusser is amazing. He is so important for Marxism. Is Sharpe claiming here that Althusser is trying to boost his authority by writing in fragments and collecting his lectures? That's a weird thing to say.
What's weird about it is it's like, it really goes to, if you really wanted to take what he wrote there and really put a spin on it, that sounds like soundbite TV is in fragments. That's what causes a lot of problems. Listening to
he says a taste for writing in fragments, which brings to my mind.
But it's not writing in fragments. It's the same thing.
I
Written
disagree.
Or a videotape of people, only fragments of what they're saying. It's kind of the
I
same
wonder
thing.
how
Taken out of context, I guess.
The quotations of Chairman Mao, and also ancient writings like Confucius play into this, because those are,
unless he has some totally different
fragments.
idea behind this that we're not grasping. You know what I mean?
I don't know. I see a Hegelian arrogance here that if you don't write a full massive tome and you only write, a collection of essays, you're inferior. This reads very academically
arrogant.
Yes.
Yes.
That's what I got when I read this. I don't really know what he means by in fragments that one cites his arguments from authority. I don't understand what that means.
I think it's taking things out of context because you're just using fragments. That's all I could when I read that.
I read the Hegelian, you need to write a whole tome, and if you
I
know
didn't
what
write
I mean.
You and I have discussed that about Hegel. He would have been better off. He almost had to force himself to do the whole from the acorn to the tree.
from the micro thought to the actual thought.
Yes.
And that has such negative repercussions on leftist organizing, as we've seen.
But you know what? It's also based totally. I mean, that's totally his perception. It's a very it's a perception type. Somebody else could see those things happen in a far different way. I mean, this is just he's using kind of his imagination.
Yeah.
To tell the story of how he thinks it all.
Yeah, that's the problem, is if you disagree with the Hegelian system, you're completely at odds.
Yeah, but I don't think so. I think you get a little too...
Well, it's an all-encompassing system.
Yes,
so if you disagree with something in the system, you disagree with the system.
It's probably easier for me because I don't know the different systems. I don't know the different... this philosopher from that philosopher, so I'm easier
not
to...
Not every philosopher tried to make a system.
So I'm in a better place to say, come on, this guy is just, this is his bias, his way he wants to tell the story.
Nietzsche, as I understand it, is against system.
Yeah.
The whole concept of the Übermensch is one who is able to go beyond seeing through systems and is able to see purely through himself.
So, but again,
It's an intellectual
well, again, I like that.
Superman.
But again, it's a gentleman's club. It's a thought process. It's just something to. It's his
except
theory.
it has repercussions on how organizing happens.
Yes, I do.
And,
okay.
How theory develops.
Yes, okay, I could see that. But Hegel has stuff in it too that you can.
But it's a system. That's the problem here.
Yes. Okay.
Right. So, and then his fifth point, which I don't as well really understand, a reduction of knowledge to technical utility, in parentheses, pragmatism. Okay. All right.
Okay, read that again slowly.
A reduction of knowledge to technical utility, pragmatism.
Okay. So that's kind of like what you were saying. Deductive knowledge, because you're not using the
You're not trying to
intuition.
Construct a system.
You're right. Yeah,
This is how it
with
should
the pragmatism is like, oh, you've got to have these fragments. You've got to have
No,
these.
he's saying that these are what Nietzscheists believe.
Okay.
And this is how it should go.
Right.
You should not build a system and then seek to have all knowledge conform to the philosophical system you've made.
Yes.
You should have knowledge as a technical utility. What's the point of systems of philosophy if not to ascertain the closest thing to truth? This is just a weird statement.
Right.
It's as if he's saying that's not the objective.
Okay, do you remember when we were at
Socialism conference?
Yes, and they debated this word over that word. To me, this is fun to talk about if you're just sitting there having cocktails and just want to think about the deeper life, right? But I don't like a lot of the stuff where people fight over the stuff, and it's not, it really has a very small amount,
Point of order, make sure
influence.
you're looking.
Has a really small influence on what's actually happening today. It's not pragmatic to waste your time on a lot of,
And it destroys organizations. That is a real effect of these systematic philosophies.
Yes.
They cause the destruction of otherwise good leftist movements and organizations.
Yeah, well, give me an example of what in particular you're talking about.
Well, for instance, trying to make a systematic that the proletariat needs to read Hegel. It needs to be completely versed in Hegel.
Okay, but give something practical. Something. Don't bring Hegel. Something that that's Hegelian that.
Well, they try to build rigid structures, and
such as what?
And
Give
they
me
have
an example of a structure.
Here's a good one.
Yes.
The Hegelian concept of gemachtism or feeling free. That is so destructive. That is immensely destructive.
So you think
the nebulous democratic corporation isn't something practicable, especially in a small group.
So wait, so when you say feeling free, it's like, because the problem is feeling free is different in each country. It's you can have this in this country and they're pushing it out as feeling free, versus other stuff in other countries that have a different way to make you feel free, and one might be better than the other, but you only know one because you've been sold this feeling free.
Oh yes, the problem is it's one very individualistic and very egotistic, but it feeds into this nonsensical idea of the democratic corporation.
Is Hegel into the whole individual and?
Well, yeah,
the
freedom of the individual, and this leads to his view of the democratic corporation, which
Okay, I do agree that
stupid.
People get too. I mean, there's nothing wrong about treating people and the individuals are. But you can't base everything on the individual, because it doesn't work
yes, and
for an economy, I guess.
A committee is not tyrannical. Full stop.
I agree. Right.
That's infantile.
That's right. I agree with that.
And unfortunately, I think the democratic corporation, this concept of Hegel's, lends to that weird libertarian,
but then there's so many
individualist view.
The problem is there's not just Hegel. So many wrote to grow a particular type of economy.
What? What do you mean?
Like common, not common, but property.
What property? What type?
The commons and that stuff.
Oh.
Yeah,
what about it?
Yeah. Okay, so that writer.
What writer?
John Locke.
John Locke.
He got on my nerves.
Didn't really deal with the commons. He dealt more with, private property under capitalism.
Right. Because that is what they've chosen to as their desired way to live, desired system, and everything they write is biased with that in mind. Does that make sense?
Well, yes, but that goes for anything.
Yes, that is true. That is absolutely true. So, I think that's just what people have to keep in mind, that all these different systems are, they have their virtues and they have their bad parts. And the writers that write for these systems all are kind of selling the systems.
I have a notion that the reason the commons is so popular in the Anglosphere is because of Hegelianism.
How's that?
According to Marx and Hegel after fall of communism, the democratic corporation is heavily rooted. What?
You mean the Democratic Party, or what are you talking about?
Hegel's what was that?
What corporation?
You said something.
Yeah, no, I'm not sure what you mean, Democratic Corporation.
We've been discussing it for the past 5 minutes. Why have you not said anything?
Yeah, no, because I just thought it was just a kind of a snarky little...
What?
Okay, so go on. What is it?
The Democratic Corporation, as we discussed about 5 minutes ago, is this hyper-democratized
But what is the
association that helps everyone feel free that Hegel developed.
And
I argue
I see how you're
that
using the word.
One,
okay.
it lends itself to libertarian abuses and hostility to any kind of hierarchy, which is not good for leftist organizing.
Yeah, but I don't like that term. I do not like that term. It is very confusing.
Well,
but it does.
according
I understand
to
it now. Yes.
Marx and Hegel after the fall of communism, I can't remember the author right now. That democratic corporation concept is very reminiscent of the guilds, and that's where I think the fetishization of the commons in the Anglosphere has arisen from.
Mm-hmm.
Which is funny.
I can see that.
The Hegelians love to say we can never go back, but they are trying to go back.
Well, I don't
to
know.
feudalism
when you say
or feudal
when you say the Hegelians say that, is that because of the dialectic? Is that what you're talking about? Or, I mean, who says that? Did Hegel say you can never go back? Is that specifically, quote, Hegel saying that?
Well, that arises from the dialectic that,
right.
Everything is
right. It grows
a synthesis.
Grows on.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
It's the whole
yeah.
Deterministic system that that earns my chagrin very much, because it kills and stifles all discussion and all reason for organizing. Why even bother being leftists if the Hegelians are correct? There's no point. Okay. All right, and I think, probably shouldn't clap next to the mic. I believe that ends our week 3 of Monthly Review Mondays.
Very interesting discussion, Sis and Nick.
Yes,
and,
very interesting. Thank you,
look
Sis and
forward to
Kathy.
next week.
Yep. Stay tuned for week 4 of Monthly Review Mondays.
Good night, all.
Yes, farewell. Thank you for tuning in. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Many thanks.